Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Sorrow of Omega's Broken Heart. Episode 11. Chapter 137. Elisa returned home and started looking for a dress to wear to the party that was being held today. She had no interest in going to any parties that were held at clubs. During these last 2 years, she did not attend any club parties. So it was kind of uncomfortable for her to go there after such a long time. She moved dresses in the closet one by one. The black jacket and shirt caught her attention immediately. She lowered her head and gently ran her hand over them. Her thoughts quickly went back to the times when she was with Lucas. She quickly opened her eyes and took her hand away. "What am I doing?" She gave a little shake of her head and took out a white dress to wear tonight. She went to take a shower and spent the day in her room. When it was evening, she got ready. She cursed herself for selecting this dress to wear. It was a white leather dress that reached her mid-thigh in length. Her curves were visible. Her figure was undeniably voluptuous. It was a dress that was tailored to fit her body perfectly. She curled the bottom half of her hair and applied makeup to complement the dress she was wearing. She put on white boots and grabbed a white purse. She was surprised by the fact that she could keep her entire outfit white. Logan informed her over the phone that he had arrived at her residence after making a call to her. After going downstairs, she found Logan seated on the couch with her parents. "Let's go," she said and headed to the door. Logan took a look at her and was taken aback by the way she was dressed. It had been a very long time since she had last worn a dress of this style. In that dazzling white hue, she radiated heat and seductive allure. Her parents did not say anything, as they felt that their daughter had become spoiled. "Don't worry. I will drop her back after the party." Logan gave Glenn and Joey his word of assurance. Glenn gave Logan a knowing nod and said, "We don't have to worry about anything since you are with our daughter." Logan smiled at them and left the house. He noticed that Elisa was waiting beside the car. He unlocked the car and helped her into the front passenger seat by opening the door for her. "Thanks," she mumbled and got in his car. He then got inside the vehicle, took the wheel, and started the engine. "We are really fated. Even our clothing matches without any discussion." Logan spoke out. Elisa glanced at Logan. He was wearing black jeans with a white shirt and jacket. His shirt and his jacket were both white in color. It appeared as though both Logan and she intended to dress in white. Regarding this issue, Elisa did not provide a response to him. He made an effort to get her attention. "You look hot in this dress. I almost forgot this appearance of yours, which captivated my attention a few years back." Elisa gave him a nod. "You are also handsome," she replied to the compliment back. "It's an honor." During the ride, he made several attempts to keep up a conversation with her. He was aware that if he stopped, she would never approach him and start a conversation with him. The car eventually arrived at the club. Elisa realized that it was the club where everyone in their school always threw parties. They used the same club when Lucas returned to this pack 2.5 years ago. Elisa and Logan made an elegant entrance into the club together. Everything was different now. Nobody at the security checkpoint checked her identification. It was not because she appeared to be an adult at this point, rather, it was because she was the future Luna of this pack. As Elisa entered the pack, she found her friends Sierra and Diva. Alpha. They bowed to Logan. He smiled at them. "How are you both?" "We are good. I wanted to express my appreciation for the care that you have provided for her." "No, that's not even relevant. She is our friend." Elisa stared at her friends and Logan while listening to their conversation. They were talking like she was a royal child, and it was their duty to take care of her. Suddenly, her gaze drew to the entrance of the club. 5 handsome men and 2 gorgeous women entered the club. She looked at the man, who was in black attire. His black jacket gave him a hot appearance. His hair is styled differently than in normal times. The moment he started to walk inside, he became the center of everyone's attention. Others followed him as he approached her and Logan. She looked away from him. Her friends went to the other side to let the royal family talk. Great timing. We have just come in, Logan said to Lucas. Lucas gave him a nod, and his eyes turned to Elisa. She could feel his gaze. Somehow, she felt nervous. Wow, you look gorgeous, Elisa. When I first saw you, I didn't think that you could wear these hot dresses too. But you are killing it, Elora said. Elisa smiled at her. Thank you. You are not looking any less. As usual, pretty and hot. Elisa gave praise to the young lady, who was dressed in black shorts with golden glitter designs on the front pockets and a black crop top with a printed red heart on it. Elisa recalled what Elora had shared with her when they were both in the garden. She dressed in all black because that was Lucas's favorite color. Elisa cast a sideways glance in the direction of Tissa, who was staring at her. You are looking drop-dead gorgeous, dear, Elisa said to Tissa. Her tone was simple as if they had never been best friends. She observed that Tissa was wearing an upset look on her face. But what could Elisa do? She had treated Elisa the same way, in fact, worse. So Elisa chose to behave like a stranger to her. Because she hurt her. Let's find a place to sit somewhere. Wade eventually found Logan and informed the others. Everyone made their way to the couches to kick back and relax for a while. Elisa was following them from behind in a calm and steady manner while also gazing around the club. Her eyes and ears were diverted away from her other thoughts by the blaring music and thick cloud of smoke. She was about to topple over when suddenly something came her way, but a hand caught her bare arm and kept her from falling to the ground. She felt a shiver in her arm when the person touched her. When she stood straight and her back pressed into a hard chest, she felt a cold breath in her ear. She gulped, knowing who was behind her. Looks like you are tuning in with him really well. Elisa did not know what to reply. Her eyes fell on Elora, who had just turned her head to look at them. Elisa immediately looked away from her and ignored the man who was standing behind her. She started walking forward and looked back to see Elora heading to him and asked, Lucas, why did you stop? Elisa heard him reply, a kitten came in my way who thought she was a tigress. But in reality, she is a scaredy kitten. Elora cast a peek in the direction of Elisa, who avoided them and joined others on the couch. All of them sat on the couches. Elisa took a seat next to Logan. Who would have ever thought that one day we could sit together like this? Wade spoke out. Indeed. Owen replied. Elisa was looking at the people who kept glancing at them and then made themselves busy dancing. She did not feel well. She was feeling bored. Her eyes moved to Lucas. He was sitting quietly. The waiter continued to bring them drinks at the table that was situated in front of the couches. Shall we play a game? It is not acceptable for us to merely sit here and do nothing. It won't be very interesting. Elora spoke out. Everyone shifted their attention to the young woman, who was smiling broadly. She appeared to be having a good time, as if she belonged to these club parties. Elisa felt that Elora was a good match for Tissa. Both of them were cheerful and party lovers. No way. We are not kids anymore. Why do you want to play games? Logan said to Elora. We are not kids but an old man like you either. What? How dare you? Logan asked and glared at her. Lucas frowned at Logan and said, if she wants to play, she will. No one will stop her. If you don't want to play, you can keep your mouth shut and watch her play. His statements left Elisa speechless and astonished. She was able to recall what she heard before they arrived at this pack. The Black Moon Pack's Alpha is strict about his Luna. Indeed. Logan's lips parted. Lucas, you are spoiling her too much. It's Alpha for you. And I don't want to repeat my words. Didn't I tell you to focus on your woman and not mine? She is going to be my Luna. I will spoil her as much as she wants to get spoiled. No one interrupted the conversation. They stared at the two alphas, who were in their own world, maybe thinking about killing each other in their wolf forms. How sweet of you. That's why I love you. Elora said it out loud and firmly grasped Lucas's arm as she did so. Her expression of satisfaction was so clear that anyone could read it from a distance. Let's play. She is our guest. We can't disappoint her. Elisa initiated to talk to Logan. He gave her a thoughtful look before saying, only for you. Elisa gave a small nod of the head and then turned her attention to Elora. Let's play. We all play together. Though Elisa did not know what game Elora was talking about since there was nothing to play there except they would order cards. Elora grabbed a bottle of beer that was left over after the others had finished drinking it a few minutes ago. We are going to spin the bottle, and when it comes to a stop in someone's direction, we are going to ask them a question. Elora explained. And what about the word dare? There are some people who are not going to pick up the truth. Tissa said. No way. Here, everyone is a royal wolf. How can anyone not answer? We can't give anyone dares, we all have respect in packs. We are around everyone. Elora replied patiently. Elisa found Elora really thoughtful. The more she got to know about her, the more she was surprised. Elora was a nostalgic woman. She was a nostalgic and wistful woman. Elora had turned to ask Lucas a question about something, but she hesitated as soon as she saw the expression on his face. His face was saying that he was not impressed with her idea of this game. Therefore, she leaned very close to him and reassured him, trust me. You are going to enjoy it. Lucas sighed and shook his head in disappointment. Logan let out a chuckle. He made fun of Elora by stating something to the effect of, this bottle spinning game? Who are we exactly? Students at the middle school. Elora scowled at him. Stop arguing and get some playtime in instead. After she finished speaking, Elora began to spin the bottle. The bottle stopped in front of Betamax. Tell us something. Did you know that you were Tissa's mate before she learned about it? If yes, then how long did you hide it from her? Elora inquired while joining both of her hands together. Elisa looked at Betamax carefully. She remembered that she stopped Tissa from meeting with him because she thought he would cheat on her. After all, he was Lucas's best friend. How foolish she was. Almost 2 years. Tissa gasped as her eyes widened. It was something she did not know. At that time, Max had told her that he had been aware of the situation a few days ago. But he lied to her about it because he did not want to make her feel bad. I love you. Tissa said and hugged Max's neck as she got emotional. Elisa lowered her head and bit the inside of her bottom lip. She felt bad that she had told Tissa to stay away from Max at that time. She felt a hand grab her hand and rubbed the back of her hand lightly. She looked beside her. Logan smiled at her. I am sorry. I swear I didn't know about it like he did 2 years before. Mine was 2 weeks. I am really regretting those days. He whispered to her so that only she could hear him. She nodded her head and looked away from him. Her eyes caught someone else's gaze. Lucas was looking at her. His gaze was strange. He was very calm as if he were looking at a stranger with some interest. The bottle turned once more in its spin. When it stopped again, this time, it was in front of Lucas. Let me ask a question. Tissa said. No. This is my game. Only I can ask questions. Elora said and turned to Lucas. Ask. He permitted her with an indifferent face. How do you feel about the people who you used to love but who betrayed you with shock? Have you forgiven them? Everyone knew who Elora was talking about. Elisa frowned at Elora. Why did she ask that question? She could skip topics related to her. Elisa was behaving well with her. Then why did she want to pick fights or want to hurt her? Nevertheless, Elisa was also curious about whether or not Lucas had forgiven her. Despite this, it was quite evident from his actions that he did not forgive her. Except for Logan, everyone held their breaths as they awaited Lucas's response. Meanwhile, Lucas did not care about anyone and directly looked at Elisa with his dark eyes, which pierced her heart. I hate them, and they will pay for it. Because I don't believe in forgiveness but in retribution. Elisa did not take her gaze off of him at any point. She desired to witness the hatred that he had built up for her within him over the course of 2 years. She believed she deserved it. So now she would have to face it. Everyone remained silent. Only music came to their ears. Tissa's voice was the first to be heard after a long time of silence among them. Let's move on. She then murmured while spinning the bottle. It came to a halt right in front of Logan. Tissa did not let Elora ask any questions this time. She took the initiative to inquire from him. Do you have any secrets that your future Luna doesn't know? Logan was taken aback by the question. Elisa frowned when she heard Tissa's question. What type of question is that? Why would Logan have a secret? It doesn't matter how he gets it, he always gets what he wants. Because of this, he has no reason to conceal anything from anyone. She thought. Logan grabbed a glass of drink and chugged it down. That indicated that he did not wish to respond to the question, and as a consequence, he drained a glass. Elora scoffed at Logan. Dude, your answer is clear. It was just yes or no. You don't have to be concerned. Logan retorted back. Elisa turned her head toward Logan. Secret? What is it that you are keeping from me that I don't know? She thought. The bottle whirled and stopped in front of a different person. When it stopped before Elisa, she got nervous. Because though this game was popular and enjoyable for young boys and girls, it became a risky one for them. It was inconvenient the way Elora interrogated each and every one of their riddles with a list of questions. All right, Elisa. It is now your turn. Elora said. Have you mourned for any decision in your life? If yes, then what is it? You can give us a simple hint, you don't have to tell us much. Elisa did not want to answer it. She was about to grab a glass when Logan's hand grabbed her wrist. I will take drinks on behalf of her. He said and chugged down one glass. Elisa stared at Logan with a stunned face. She did not expect that. How romantic! Elora let out with a sarcastic tone. As time went on, Logan continued drinking on Elisa's behalf because she could not answer a single question. Elira probed her with this kind of question that was directly tied to Lucas in some way. Elisa felt really upset about why Elora was doing that. The length of the game caused everyone to begin experiencing feelings of boredom with it. Not anymore. Lucas stopped Elora, and she nodded her head. Logan held Elisa's hand and leaned on her ear. Let's dance. Elisa had every intention of denying it, but she noticed Lucas was looking at them. Seeing that, she felt like going with Logan. Sure. Logan led her out onto the dance floor, and they started to dance. The loud music and the heavy smoke served as a kind of anesthetic. Elisa made an effort to block out everything else and simply move in with the beats. She wondered if she could also live a carefree life like the people who were dancing around them. Are you enjoying it? Logan asked while moving closer to her. Yeah. She replied. The melody changed, and they moved inside the crowd further. Logan was quite drunk. But Elisa desired to have the drunken sensation. She decided to let her guard down and just enjoy herself while she was at the club. Because she was aware that from the following day on, she would be required to perform her Luna's duty once more. Why not make the most of the evening by treating yourself to some music and dancing? Logan placed his hands on her waist and pulled her closer, which caused her to be stunned. I will not take advantage of you. Don't worry. Just trust me. He raised his voice in an effort to be heard by her more clearly. She believed him with it because, in the last 2 years, he had never tried to do that. He was the head alpha. If he wanted, he could do many things with her. They danced for a long time. Elisa was aware that someone was gazing at her, but she paid no attention to it and instead focused her attention on the dance. When she felt that her legs were hurting like hell, she patted Logan's shoulder. Logan gave her a hug in order to better hear her. What? He asked. I am done with dancing. I am going to the washroom now. Logan moved away and nodded his head with a bright smile. He appeared to be in great spirits. Okay. He grabbed her by the wrist and took her toward a washroom, which was located in the far left corner. I can go by myself. You go and take a seat. You are drunk. She said and removed his hand from her wrist. Are you sure? Yeah. I am not a kid. Okay. I am going to sit at the bar. Elisa wanted to tell him not to drink more. But then she refrained herself from taking care of him. Okay. Logan made his way to the bar and took a seat on one of the stools there. Meanwhile, Elisa walked to the corner and headed to the washroom. After using the washroom, she took a moment to examine her appearance in the mirror. Because she continued to dance, she combed through her messy hair and touched up her makeup as best she could. She prepared to go and turned around before opening the door. She closed the door behind her. She was about to start walking, but she was abruptly stopped by a hand that grabbed her wrist and shoved her into a wall. She was startled and let out a loud gasp. However, when she saw who pulled her like that, her body froze. Lucas enjoyed dancing with him. His dark eyes shot a glare at her, showing that he was not happy with what she had done with Logan. Why do you even ask? She mustered up some bravery to ask. This time around, she managed to avoid stammering. Stop trying to get my attention all the time. He gave her a warning. She furrowed her brows. I didn't do that, she said with confusion. His eyes moved from her face and lowered down to her dress. Yeah. You didn't. His tone was dripping with sarcasm. Elisa felt that he was referring to the dress she was wearing. Is he thinking that I wore this dress to get his attention? She thought about it and attempted to clear up his misunderstanding. Look, I didn't. He cut her off by touching the necklace on her neck. The sensation of his touch gave her a shiver all throughout her body. She lowered her head and noticed that the necklace was no longer hidden. She forgot to hide it inside her dress when she looked at herself in the mirror. It came out because of dancing. She gulped when his dangerous eyes observed the necklace. What is this? He asked with a cold tone. She was at a loss for words to say anything. But she still tried. However, before that, he grabbed the pendant and pulled it with some force. Ah! She felt pain in her neck as the chain scratched against both sides of her neck with increasing force as it broke free. He grabbed the necklace in his fist. He darted at it and said, "Your time is over. I wanted to ensure your safety by providing you with this necklace. But now I am here. Who will protect you from me?" He looked at her and leaned to her ear, then whispered, "That disaster about which everyone had warned you was actually me." Elisa felt fear inside her. She felt her legs become jelly on the ground. His words gave a chill to her body. He moved his head away and looked at her reaction. He smirked at her. She lowered her head slowly and noticed him putting the necklace inside the pocket of his jeans. These past 2 years had been challenging for her. However, she never removed that necklace because it was the last remaining trace of him that she had. Because she did not want to lose it, she believed that he was constantly there with her. She tried to calm herself down by closing her eyes and taking a few long breaths. Since he was close to her, she could smell his cologne, which immediately calmed her. Unbeknownst to her, her inner wolf yearned to come out and hug him. "No, you can't do that anymore. He does not belong to me," she said to her wolf to control her. Looking at her closing eyes and silence, he said, "Lose words? Or perhaps you were aware of it." She opened her eyes and raised her head to look at him. He looked at her with eyes that were dark and hazy. They came this close after a very long time. Last time he came to her like that and almost choked her to death. Would he do that to her again? "What will you do to me? Will you kill me?" she asked with a calm tone. Her voice and tone surprised herself. She thought she would stutter, but she didn't. She could not just allow herself to break down in front of him. She would have to be strong. "Kill?" he asked and laughed. The sound of his laugh caused her to shiver in dread. It was dangerous, as if he was mocking her for the question that she had asked. "I will not kill you," he responded and lowered his head to come to her level. "Not yet, baby." She met his gaze and peered into his eyes. Her eyes began to gloss over. After what seemed like an eternity, he called her baby. Nevertheless, anger was the only emotion that came through in his tone when he spoke. "I will kill you daily." She inhaled and exhaled. Then she tried to avoid his sharp gaze. "I got it," she said and attempted to move aside. She wanted to go out of the corner. But he placed his hands on the wall on both sides of her head and caged her, which startled her. "What are you doing? You looked quite happy with your fiancé, which I didn't like at all." Hearing him, she looked at him. "Why?" He scoffed at her. "Don't overthink, baby. It's not possessiveness, but the agony that you ignited in my heart 2 years ago. I can't let you live happily. I won't." His words broke her heart. She believed that she deserved it. "I think you should focus on your Luna, not me. No one wants your opinion." "Fine." She tried to push him, but he did not budge in the slightest. "What do you want, Lucas?" "You." "What?" Her eyes widened. Her mouth trembled slightly. The realization that he was quietly observing her caused her to take a sharp breath. I know you are the head alpha of another pack. Now you have a Luna, too. So stop talking like this and let me go. Just wait and watch. In a few days, you will come to me and beg me. That time I will show you who I am. Her hands froze on his arms, which were pushing them. She looked away from him and said, I didn't forget what you had done with my father. Don't do anything to him. I am the one who ended our relationship with you. If you want to punish me, you can, but just don't hurt others. Hurt? You could never possibly fathom the things I have in store for him. Elisa turned her head toward him. She frowned at him. She knew he had the power to do anything to her father. She got angry as she thought about him insulting her father in the important pack meeting. Don't you dare! She gritted her teeth. All the nervousness left her head, and only her care for her father remained. So you are challenging me, hey? He said and lifted his hand. He grabbed her jaw, and she hissed in slight pain. She held his wrist and tried to remove his hand. I will never tolerate your violence. I will complain about you, he interrupted her by leaning close to her face. Their lips were just a few inches apart from each other. Complaint? Who are you going to complain to? Who is it that has the authority to discipline Alpha Lucas? Leave me. And violence? You will whine that Alpha Lucas uses violence against women. Baby, when it comes to exacting revenge, I don't make any distinctions between males and females. In my opinion, they are equal. He released her jaw, and she shook her head as she moved her jaw to feel at ease. She glared at him and retorted back. If you do anything to my dad, I will never forgive you. He grabbed her jaw once again, but this time he did so softly, and he twisted it to the right and left as if he were looking for his fingerprints on her cheeks. She made an effort to shove him away, but who could win over his strength? She should have understood 2 years ago that he was someone powerful. Otherwise, who could have this type of carefree attitude to disobey his alpha father? What? You are not satisfied with my pain? Do you want to break my jaw? She asked furiously. I was thinking that if I break one of your bones or scratch your body with one of my claws. She felt shivers run all over her body. When he noticed it, he reached out with his other hand to touch one of her exposed arms. He proceeded while lightly brushing her arm with his knuckles and continued, How will your Logan heal it? Because last time, he himself took 1 month to heal his own wounds. Not everyone is Lucas who can heal you in a moment, you know. Her lips parted as she recalled that evening of the accident. When she fell asleep, she was full of scratches and pain. But when she woke up, all of her wounds had miraculously vanished. Her fingers fisted on his jacket, and she asked, Was that who healed me? Elisa felt like crying. How could she possibly not give that some serious thought? How could any wound heal magically? So it was him. She thought. She asked, How? You came to my house that day. Lucas did not reply to her as if he were also recalling the day how he healed her. In a fit of rage, he clenched his jaw. Elisa could see wrath scrambling in his eyes. She avoided his gaze in fear. Before the past 2 years, those eyes used to stare at her with a sense of warmth. She cursed herself again in her head. She felt that she could not forget this man because she still loved him. She could not give Logan the place that he held because her heart still beat faster whenever she thought about him. The thought of Elora jumped into her head out of nowhere, and she shoved him violently. Her unexpected prod caught him off guard. The push caused him to retreat 1 step away from her. Thanks for what you have done for me, Alpha Lucas. But the past is past. It is not appropriate for us to discuss the past. As you suggested, I will try my best to stay away from you. You have your Elora, and I have my Logan. I believe that each of us is committed to our faithful partners. We will be happy in our lives this way. Saying that, Elisa started to walk. She heard him from behind. Faithful partner? Foolish woman. Now I get why that bastard rejected you at first. Elisa's steps halted. The pace of Elisa's steps slowed down. She balled her hands into fists and mustered up the will to turn around and face him. What did you say? She asked. You are a foolish lady. Your fiancé does not have any interest in you anymore. Can't you see how he is roaming around my fiancé like a bee? Don't talk nonsense about him. Oh, I see. You are becoming possessive of him. What if I kill you just to watch the anguish in your eyes? Elisa gulped. She could not believe that Lucas could say things like that. Lucas, what the heck is wrong with you? He is your brother. He gave her a smirk before walking in her direction and pausing in front of her. Then should I change my prey? He looked around as if thinking about who could fit perfectly in Logan's place. Then his face lightened up. Got it. He said. What? She asked with shocked eyes. What about your lovely dad? Because she was so enraged, she raised her hand, but Lucas quickly grabbed her wrist and held it firmly. Not again, baby. He muttered with a furious tone. That night you slapped me, and I left it because I thought you were a loyal woman, my woman. But after leaving the pack, I regretted it every day. I didn't forget it. And I promise that I will never let you forget it either. He said, and his grip tightened. Ah! She felt intolerable pain in her wrist. She did not know whether her bone had broken. She had never felt this type of pain before. What? Can't handle just a little bit of pain? What if I break every inch of you mentally? Believe me. You will cry and regret every moment you thought about deceiving me. However, Elisa had no ability to turn back the clock. Her eyes started to well up with tears. She was terrified of appearing weak in his presence. She did not want to break in front of him. The practice of 2 years to become cold inside had broken in front of him. She broke down. But he did not melt at her tears. He was like a stone-hearted man. There was no pity in his eyes for her. Why are you doing this? You are so powerful, Alpha. You have the ability to get any woman you desire, just like before. You settled on a potent hybrid to serve as your Luna. Have a good time with her. Why do you even care about or remember the things that a woman like me does wrong? I am a plain and ordinary woman. I am well aware that what I did was wrong. But let me and others go. Just let everyone have a happy life. Don't do anything to anyone. You know what I am feeling right now? I get a deep sense of satisfaction from witnessing the tears streaming down your face. Be prepared. Because day by day, it will turn into your habit. He said and released her hand. She looked at her wrist and noticed fingerprints on it. She grabbed her wrist with her other hand and could not move it because it became numb in pain. She could feel his gaze on her. He was quiet and then started to head out of the corner. But she stopped her by saying, "What do you want? If you want, I can call off this marriage and leave the pack forever." He turned his head toward her with a frown. "Didn't I ask you to do the same thing 2 years ago?" She remembered that it was what he told her that night. He had asked her to run away with him from this pack. Why didn't I go with him? She asked herself with remorse. It was the only thing that ate her alive every day. You are not going to cancel any marriage. You will stick with that Logan. I want to see how you both take my blow. Because if you want to leave this pack, no matter where you hide, I will find you and kill you alive. Her heart froze at his warning. Did he really hate her so much that he talked about killing her in every single sentence? She wiped her eyes and nodded at him. I am your culprit. You can hurt me as much as you want. Don't involve other people in your revenge. He turned his head and started to walk again while saying, You really don't know me. I not only love but also hate with great intensity. Under the different colors of flickering lights and cloudy smoke, people were lost in their own world. Logan was sitting on a stool in the bar. The bartender kept looking at him. Alpha Logan gestured with his hand, saying to make him another drink. The bartender nodded his head while mixing the different drinks, then placed a glass on the counter for him. Logan grabbed the glass and chugged it down. He noticed a woman in black clothing taking a seat next to him. The bartender asked the woman, What would you like to drink, madam? She ordered the bartender, Whiskey please. The bartender was stunned, as if thinking if she could really take the heated drink. However, in accordance with the customer's request, he prepared it and presented the glass to her, complete with 2 cubes of ice. She reached for the glass and turned her head to Logan, only to discover that he had been watching her ever since she came to sit there. You drink? He asked while eyeing the glass. Bro, we are at the club. Of course I will drink. She replied as she could not understand his question. He rolled his eyes and turned away from her. I am not your brother, he said while ordering another drink. Yeah, you are right. You are not my bro. You are my brother-in-law, she replied with a pleased tone. When he heard that, a frown formed on his face. He looked at her and observed her face. She was a beautiful woman with a powerful aura. When he said that he disliked her because he thought she was different, he lied about it. In fact, her different rank made her more attractive. You like him a lot, don't you? He asked. Like? I love him. He is the love of my life. You don't know how much hard work I had to do for your brother. I almost killed my. She paused when she realized what she was going to say. Almost killed your what? Self-respect. She cleared her throat and replied. He did not ask anything more and watched her sip the glass like juice. He could not help but chuckle at her cute behavior. He was able to see through her act of seeming to be a strong woman when, in reality, she was just a childish girl. Stop staring at me. Your brother is very protective of me. He will kill you if he somehow feels insecure. Why didn't you tell him that I was not after you in the art gallery? She scoffed at him. Oh please. I can see how other boys look at me. Of course, you were after me, dear. And by the way, I loved it when your brother hugged me, so I kept quiet. I just love that man. Hearing her, he experienced some sort of unease. He glared at her and said, Stop talking like a shameless woman. You are going to be a Luna. This is how a Luna behaves. She was stunned by his cold look and tone. She was not a woman who would listen quietly. How dare you talk to me like that? He smirked at her. Dare? You are sitting in my pack. If I want, oh, shut up. Come to my pack. I will show you what my power is. My pack members are afraid of my name. Why? Are you a ghost? No, I am their Luna. You are nothing but a woman who makes others feel scared, then. Look at my Luna. People have respect for her rather than fear of her. Don't bring her into the conversation. The way she caught my alpha's heart a few years ago, it's her good luck that I forgave her in my heart and extended a hand of friendship, otherwise he stopped her in the middle of the sentence by pulling the stool where she was sitting close to him and asking with a frigid tone, otherwise what? She was taken aback by his abrupt move. As she gazed into his eyes, she found herself at a loss for words. She looked away from him. I would have no one is allowed to hurt her. Before thinking about hurting her, always remember that I am on her way to protect her. She turned her head to face him and pushed his chest to move him away. The bartender and others around them were shocked since they could not hear their conversations but only see their actions. You should have been like this before rejecting her. The only one who hurt her was you. So stop talking like you are her knight in shining armor. She replied with anger. In just 1 second, Logan came out of his drunken state. Why did people around him always keep talking about the rejection that he wanted to forget? Could people not make mistakes? Why would he have to live with remorse? He looked around him and saw everyone looking at them. As soon as he directed his attention in their direction, they instinctively bowed their heads and went back to what they had been doing. He turned to her and said, Elora, you don't have to worry about my past. Just think about yours and your alpha's present and future. He is enough to secure it. After all, he is the most powerful alpha among all. Don't fly too much. Sometimes a massive elephant can fall down from the bite of an ant. She stared at him after hearing him. He also did not break eye contact. You hate him. Don't you? Of course I do. He always possessed what's mine. He gritted his teeth while replying. Just like you did when we were children. A deep voice was heard from behind them. Elora turned her stool around, but Logan did not need to turn since he knew who it was. Lucas, Elora said, getting on her feet. Lucas came towards them and wrapped his hand around Elora's waist, which could not go unnoticed by Logan. It's a saying that people will get what they did in their past. Logan ignored his remarks and resumed drinking. Lucas, I was just talking to him. Elora said and tried to avoid any kind of misunderstanding. It's okay, darling. Because the things he believes are his were mine from the beginning. Elora glanced at Logan, who looked unbothered. She grabbed Lucas by the arm and said, let's get out of here. Yeah, let's go. Lucas replied. When they were heading to the entrance of the club, Logan turned his head and saw them leaving. For how much longer are you going to deceive yourself? Wade, not again. Logan said and stood up. Wade had watched everything and came to his best friend. I am not only your beta but also your best friend. I can read your minds and thoughts, Logan. I don't want anyone's advice. Logan said and looked around the club for the woman he believed he loved. Where is she? I don't know. Wade replied and sat on a stool in the bar. Logan started to walk to look for Elisa. His eyes fell on the corner where Elisa was coming out. He walked toward her and asked, You took a long time. Are you okay? He inquired as his eyes continued to observe her. Her head was down. She did not look fine to him. I am okay. I am leaving now. You can stay if you want. She replied. No, I am also leaving. I will drop you at home. She looked at him and shook her head. You can't drive. You are drunk. Her eyes and nose were red, giving the appearance that she had been crying. He reached out his hand and cupped her cheek before asking, Hey, are you okay? She responded by gently removing his hand from her cheeks and saying, I am fine. He was aware that she was lying. On the other hand, he gave a slight nod of the head and said, My driver will drive the car. I have already contacted him. He is outside. Elisa was surprised by his awareness. He noticed her look and said, I promised your parents that I would drop you home by myself. I can't let you go alone. She let out a sigh and realized why her parents had such a soft spot for him. He took his responsibilities toward elders and other people in his care very seriously. Sometimes, she wondered what her life would have been like if he had not rejected her from the start and she had not met Lucas. Could she be happy with him? Logan took her hand and pulled her along with him. She hissed immediately in pain. He paused and turned to her. What happened? Nothing. She replied while attempting to free her hand from his grasp on it. He removed his hand from hers and then said, Let me see. No, it's nothing. I just brushed up against a wall. Is it serious? Let's go to the Pack hospital to see Linus. No, I am fine. I just want to go back home. She said and hid her wrist with her purse. Okay, let's go. They walked to the entrance. Elisa glanced around the club before leaving. She did not see Lucas or Elora. Except for them, their group was present. She saw Tissa looking at her as if she wanted to talk. But Elisa averted her gaze away from her and followed Logan out of the club. They were greeted by Logan's driver, who was standing outside waiting for them. Logan was going to open the back door for her, but his steps huddled. Elisa reached out and grabbed his arm to help him. Are you okay? She asked him. He turned his head toward her and shook his head. I am not, Elisa. Elisa looked at the driver. The driver understood her gaze and helped her get Logan inside the car. Elisa sat next to Logan and told the driver to start the car. The driver did what he was told. He started the car. Elisa looked outside the window. Her mind kept replaying Lucas's words. She believed that he had plans to take revenge for his broken heart. If somehow he gets to know that my father made me choose them over him, he will hurt him. I can't let him do that. I have to protect my father from him. She thought and touched her neck. Her eyes widened when she remembered that her neck was empty. It had become her habit to gently stroke the necklace whenever she found herself in a difficult situation. When she thought back to the moment when he removed the necklace from her neck, she felt empty inside. His eyes, filled with hatred, kept reminding her how broken he was when she left him heartbroken. His voice still echoed when he asked her to leave this pack with him. Even though he had told her that he would treat her with the love and respect that she deserved, she went ahead and broke his heart by saying crucial words. She examined her swollen wrist as she ran her finger over his fingerprints. After he returned to this pack, she had only 2 conversations with him. And in both of these instances, he left his mark on her by inflicting pain on her. Elisa was stunned when she felt a weight on her shoulder. When she turned her head, she noticed that Logan's head was resting on her shoulder. His eyes were closed. She was about to move his head from shoulder, but she left the thought. She shifted her eyes to the window and looked at the changing scenery outside. Meanwhile, in a black car, a man was looking at the way where the white car was headed. He watched the couple as they left the club and got into the car outside. His sharp eyes were observing everything quietly. The woman next to him was staring at him. They have already left, she said to him. He did not reply and instead continued to puff on his cigarette. Because the window was open, the smoke was able to escape from inside the car. Alpha, should we start the car now? The driver spoke out. He responded with HMM while continuing to keep his eyes on the road. He loves her. She let out. As he inhaled the cigarette smoke, he paused for a moment after hearing her. He finally turned his attention to the woman and said, "You don't look pleased with that. What problem would I have? I am finally going to be with the man of my dreams. I have no problem with anyone." "That's good for you," he replied and continued smoking. The woman closed her eyes and leaned against the seat, then chuckled. Maturity is when you realize that Logan is her hero and Lucas is the villain of her life. The man scoffed at the woman as his eyes turned orange. The woman smiled at him and added, "But everyone falls in love with a handsome villain. So?" He turned to her and raised one eyebrow. "So? I am not different from them. Stop flirting and behave like a Luna. You are different, and that's why you are with me right now. Never forget your position." After saying this, he rested his head against the back of his seat and shut his eyes. "Lucas, I am all ears. What exactly is going on in your head right now? I have never seen you so calm before. Is something interesting going to happen?" she asked with glowing green eyes. "You will know soon." "When will we return our pack?" "Soon," he replied and looked at her. He noticed her expression. She was not sad, nor did she look happy. "Elora, are you not happy?" She immediately grinned at him and replied, "With you, I can stay happy anywhere." Lucas did not attempt to draw out the topic and instead maintained his silence throughout the ride. When the car reached the pack house, Elisa could be seen coming out of there. She glanced at the car, then ignored it and climbed on the car to leave for her house. Elora came out of the car when the driver stopped at the entrance. "You are here?" Elora asked Elisa. Elisa looked at her through the car window and nodded. "Actually, Logan is quite drunk, so I came to drop him off first." Elora's brows raised as she nodded her head. "Oh, I see." Elisa could sense someone gazing at her through the dark glass window of the car that was parked next to hers. She avoided the gaze and said to Elora, "Bye, good night." Elora nodded her head calmly. "Good night." Saying that, she walked inside the pack house. Elisa told Logan's driver to start the car, and the driver drove the car out of the pack house area. From inside the car, Lucas had watched everything. He exited the car as soon as he could no longer see the white car in the distance. The driver was about to start the car to park it in the parking area, but before he could do that, Lucas opened the door and ordered, "Get out." The driver was startled and immediately came out of the car. Lucas got inside and started the car. He drove the car at full speed. His eyes fell on the white car that stopped in front of the house. He halted the speed and parked the car a little far from the house. The white car drove away from there. He rolled down the window glass and lit a cigarette, then started to smoke while looking up at the window on the second floor. The light turned on as if someone had just entered. After half an hour, the light turned off. Hours passed, and he kept smoking while sitting in the car. At one point, he came out of his car and threw the cigarette on the ground, then crashed it with his shoe. He looked up at the window one last time while thinking about what had happened tonight. Elisa woke up when her mother knocked on the door. She opened her eyes and rubbed them with the back of her hand. She gave the door a quick check before calling out, "Mom, I am awake. Are you okay? What happened? You never slept so long." Her mother shouted back from outside the door. She sat up and yawned. Then something hit her. She looked at the door and frowned. "When did I lock the door?" She thought she had forgotten that she locked the door last night. She walked to the door and opened it. Her mother was standing outside with a plate of food. "Are you okay, Elisa?" "I am totally fine, Mom." "Will you go to the pack house today?" "No." "Why?" I don't feel like going. Okay. She replied and handed the plate to her. It was because Elisa did not eat with her parents together. So her mother came to her room with her breakfast. Thanks. Elisa replied. When her mother left, she closed the door. She placed the plate on the bed and walked to the wardrobe, rubbing her eyes as she went to retrieve her clothing. Her phone began to ring. She grabbed her phone and saw Sierra calling her. Sierra, Elisa, why didn't you come to school today? Sierra asked with a worried tone. I don't know how long I slept. I usually don't sleep this much. I missed my classes today. No worries. I will give you all the notes. You must be tired after last night's party, that's why you slept so long. Party. Elisa thought and froze. She almost forgot that last night she went to a party. How could she forget what had happened last night? Lucas almost broke her hand. My hand. She mumbled. She slowly moved her hand from her ear, which was holding the phone, and her eyes widened. Her swollen hand appeared to be perfectly fine. She was taken aback when she twisted her wrist and found that she did not experience any pain. Hello? Elisa. She brought her phone close to her ear again and said, I will catch up with you later, Sierra. Okay, take care. Bye. Bye. Elisa threw her phone on the bed and grabbed her wrist with her other hand. She tightened her grip to feel any pain, but she did not feel any. What the hell? Last night, it hurt like hell. She said to herself. Suddenly, she touched her neck and froze. She rushed to the mirror on her dressing table and looked at her neck. Last night, she discovered that both sides of her neck were covered in deep scratches. But now she was looking at a clean and clear neck. There were no scratches on her neck. She turned around and looked around her room. She bit her bottom lip as she realized what had actually happened. She thought, did you heal me again, Lucas? Why are you doing this? You are the one who is hurting me, and at the same time, you are the one who is healing me. Elisa took a shower and had breakfast in her room. All the time, she only thought about her wounds. How did he do that? She thought, but could not get an answer. She received a call from Logan. She took the call, and his inquisitive voice greeted her right away as she answered the call. How did you get back to your house last night? You should have gone back to your house first. Why didn't you do that? Logan, take it easy. Your driver got me home without any problems. I was the one who told him that, due to the fact that you had fallen asleep in the car, he needed to make the first turn toward the pack house. I don't know what happened to me last night. I should not have drunk. It's not a big deal. What are you doing? Nothing. The conversation was disrupted when someone knocked on the door. Elisa turned her head to look at the door and said to Logan, I think Mom is knocking on the door for something. Talk to you later. She ended the call and walked to the door. As soon as she opened the door, she was stunned. Tissa. Tissa was standing outside the door. After taking a close look at her, Elisa questioned her by asking, Is everything okay? Can I come inside? Tissa asked, and Elisa stepped aside to let her enter the room. After closing the door, Elisa turned to Tissa. Tissa looked around the room and smiled sadly. I came here after a long time. Hearing her, Elisa's face turned cold. It was impossible for her to forget the manner in which Tissa had treated her from the moment she returned to the pack. I think you have something to talk about. Elisa said to her. Tissa turned around and looked at her. But she could not say anything. She was silent for quite some time. Elisa stared at Tissa as she saw tears scrambling in the corners of her eyes. She looked away and asked, "I think you should leave if you don't have any." Tissa could not let her finish as she rushed to embrace her. Elisa was taken aback by her sudden action. However, she did not hug her back. Tissa hurt her. She could not let it slide from her heart. "I am sorry. I should not have behaved like that." Tissa mumbled and hugged her tightly. Elisa sighed as she also got emotional and finally hugged her back. Tissa broke the hug and cupped her cheeks. "I swear I am guilty for my behavior. But I was really shocked when I heard about the things that happened 2 years ago. I wanted to talk to you and come to this pack, but there was a restriction, so I could not return here. But now I have realized that I should not interfere with your private life. It's your life, and you can decide whatever you want." Elisa heard her and did not respond to it. She only looked at the floor while listening to Tissa. 2 years ago, when Max first took me to the Black Moon Pack, I was completely shocked by his true identity. I learned so many new things. I missed you a lot, but Max said that they did not contact anyone, and it was their pack's rule. That was how they kept their identities secret. It was because Lucas wanted that. "Why?" Elisa asked. "He did not like to meet any other alpha of the pack. At the start, I was so lonely and did not know how to manage so many responsibilities that fell on my shoulders. You can't believe how surprised I was when I got to know who the head alpha was. When he returned to the pack after your breakup, he was not the same as I saw him in this pack. He was a totally different person. His power and ability are something beyond our imagination." "Beyond our imagination?" Tissa nodded her head. "Yeah. I learned that he worked hard a lot when he was outside. His parents thought he was doing nothing, but in reality, he was accomplishing more than his father had ever managed in his entire life. When you visit our pack one day, you will notice the fear and respect that each individual member of our pack has for him." Elisa's level of surprise continued to escalate with each new fact that she discovered about Lucas. Tissa recalled an event and said, "You have no idea how much he broke when he came back to the Black Moon Pack. Your one decision broke his heart completely. I had been told that he was not the type of man who could love another person, but I remembered the way he used to look at you. I watched both of you together as well. That was the reason I was so upset with the decision you made. I just could not believe Lucas's words. But then I heard the news." "What news?" Elisa felt sad that Lucas was heartbroken because of her. She tried to control her tears as Tissa was talking about him. "The news about your wedding. When it was declared that you and Logan would marry soon, Lucas got so angry that time. His pain turned into anger, and he started to go to war. During that terrifying moment, the entire pack was trembling in fright. Because he felt it was necessary for his pack to have a Luna, he made the decision to make Elora his future Luna at one point. It was his need, not his desire." Tears fell from Elisa's eyes. She wiped her tears and said, "Let's leave all of this. I am happy for you." Elisa said to Tissa that Max had developed into a powerful beta for a formidable pack. Tissa held her hand and asked, "I was a fool when I believed those things. And Lucas also warned me to kill me if I contacted you in the future. But now I feel like I should not have listened to that. Because after seeing you once again, I believed there was something that we were missing. You haven't changed. You are still the same Elisa I knew." Elisa averted her eyes from her and walked to the window. She could not tell her the truth, could she? "I know you can't lie to me. Tell me what happened that caused you to become like this. Why did you change your heart toward Lucas? Why did you accept Logan?" "Because I knew you did not like him. After asking, Tissa moved to stand next to her. I think it would be best if we put an end to this discussion right here, Tissa. No, I want to know. I should have done this the moment I returned here. But now, since I understand my fault, let me know the truth. Elisa turned to her and said, if I tell you, can you promise that you will never say those things to others? I promise. Elisa turned her head outside the window and thought to release a little bit of the burden that she had been carrying for a long time. She told her everything. Tissa's eyes widened in shock. She could not stop her tears as she felt remorse inside that she could not be here with Elisa at that time. I could not ever imagine that your dad, who always referred to you as his princess, would do something that would ruin your life. It never came across my mind for a single time. Elisa lowered her head. She had nothing to say about her father. Even her mother supported her father. She was unable to comprehend the fact that she had also turned her back on Lucas. Elisa. She turned to Tissa and saw her crying. I am so sorry. I should have been with you. Tissa said. Tears kept rolling down her cheeks. Elisa smiled at Tissa sadly and hugged her. Don't cry. I am happy that you are back to me. I was so alone at that time. Saying that, Elisa could not stop her shuddering voice. She could not stop herself anymore. The two close friends comforted one another with hugs and tears as they sobbed together. After breaking the hug, Tissa held Elisa's hand and made her sit on the bed, then sat next to her. Elisa, what you did was never your wish. What's now? How will you live like this? Elisa shook her head. It's been a while. Everyone has changed, including me. Currently, this is my life. There is nothing else that I can do at this time. But Tissa, relax. I told you the truth because you are my best friend. Don't tell this to others. All of this was in my past. My present and future are what I am right now. Tissa sat there without moving or uttering a word. It seemed as though she was in conflict with herself in some way. Then she asked, how did you pass all those days? By training. So, are you ready to be this Pax Luna? What else can I do? Life never gave me the chance to let me live like I wanted. It broke my heart at first by rejection, and then when I tried to mend it, it broke me once again. Tissa had no words to console Elisa. Where they came in was a really critical point in life. I think. Tissa said but paused. What? Elisa asked as she turned her head to her. She saw that her head was down. I think he still loves you. Elisa let out a chuckle as she rubbed the palm of her hand with her thumb. No. I have seen hatred in his eyes. I deserve it. I am the one to blame for his animosity. Don't say that. Tissa talked to her for a while, then she got a call from Max. I think I should leave now. Tissa pushed herself to her feet and stood up. So quickly. Yet. There is some sort of file that requires my attention right now. My best friend turned into a businesswoman, not bad. Elisa remarked while giggling to herself. You have no idea how I am feeling at this very moment. I got my best friend back. I missed you a lot. Yet, I noticed how you were missing while making a new best friend. Elisa said and rolled her eyes. When Tissa heard her, she paused for a moment. She gave a small shake of her head and said, I swear. She will never be able to replace you in my heart. But it's not a lie that she is a good friend. I like her. I have nothing against her in my heart. But why did she target me last night in the club? When? Come on. Don't try to convince me that you were blind to what she did when you saw it. She questioned me on anything and everything pertaining to Lucas. Oh. That's normal to her. She is crazy about Lucas. When I first met her, I thought she was insane. But then I realized that she is not a bad girl but just obsessed with Lucas. Elisa was silently listening. Tissa bit her tongue when she realized that she was talking about another woman liking Lucas in front of Elisa. Elisa was able to observe Tissa's hesitance. She gave her a friendly grin and reassured her, "It's okay, Tess. I am happy that he got someone who actually loves him. Leave it. Tell me when you will come to the pack house." "Tomorrow." "Why not today?" "I am not feeling like going." "We will meet tomorrow." "Okay. Then see you tomorrow," Tissa responded. Elisa went downstairs with Tissa to see her off to the door. When they headed to the door, Tissa stopped when she saw Elisa's father coming from outside. "When did you come, Tissa?" he asked as he glanced at Elisa. "Some time ago, uncle. I am leaving now," Tissa replied without any emotion, as she was really angry at him. "Where are you going?" "I prepared a few meals specifically for you." "Tissa, how about we all eat lunch together?" Elisa's mother came out of the kitchen when she heard them talking. Tissa turned to her and declined her by shaking her head. She would have gladly agreed with her if she had not known about the reality of the situation. However, after hearing all of the things that Elisa said, she became very upset with both of Elisa's parents. "I'm sorry, Aunt. Right now, I have to leave. I am grateful that you requested it. Bye," Tissa said to her. Tissa eventually made her way out of Elisa's home after giving her one final bear embrace. Her car was parked outside. She unlocked the car and got inside. She glanced at the house for the last time and then drove away in the direction of the pack house. As she reached the pack house, she noticed that Elora had already pulled her car over. Additionally, she was also outside. "Where were you?" Tissa asked with a surprised look while coming out of the car. Because Elora was new here, she would lose if no one guided her here. So Tissa was worried for her. Elora got out of her car, closed the door, and then threw the keys to the security guard standing nearby. "Park it for me." "Yes, madam," the guard said, astonished by the woman's rude manner. Then Elora turned to Tissa and responded to her question, "I went to the club." "At this time?" "Yeah," Elora replied while avoiding her gaze, which confused Tissa. "You are not allowed to act in such a manner toward my people." Their ears were able to pick up Logan's voice. When Tissa turned around, she saw that Logan was standing nearby with a few pack fighters. His words were directed at Elora. He did not like how she threw the car keys at the guard. Elora rolled her eyes and crossed her arms before continuing, "I can do whatever I want. My brother did a wonderful job of spoiling you." "Oh my gosh! What brought on this sudden realization that he is your brother?" "For what? Just because he turned out to be an alpha with more power than you. You come on, guys. Stop arguing like new lovers and shorten out the things between you, which we can't understand. Everyone is sick of hearing you two argue with one another." Tissa's voice broke through the silence. Logan was taken aback by her words. Elora also did not like either. Therefore, she started to walk to the pack house, avoiding the other two. Tissa glanced at Logan, and then she also went inside the pack house. However, rather than going to her own room, she walked to the very last room and knocked on the door. "Come in." She opened the door after getting permission. "Alpha," she said as she looked over at Lucas, who was seated on the couch. He was using his laptop, which was positioned on the coffee table in front of the couch, to do his work. A cigarette was gripped between his two fingers, while a bottle of wine and a half-filled glass were placed next to the laptop. He gave the door a glance before responding. Yet, Tissa could see his mood was not okay since he was working. However, she steeled herself, summoned the fortitude, and said, "Alpha, I need to talk to you. I am busy right now, Tissa. Talk to Max if you have any issues with any sub-alphas." She shook her head and requested, "Alpha, it's important. I want to talk about Elisa." The next morning, Elisa went to school. Her friends kept asking her if she was okay. "I am totally fine, guys." She told them that she had to go a long way from the club since she went to drop Logan off first, so she woke up late and could not come to attend the classes yesterday. After classes, she left the school and headed to the pack house. Once she arrived at the pack house, she saw that Alpha, Neil and Ella were already on their way out. "Oh, Elisa," Ella said and went up to talk to her. "Are you going out somewhere?" Elisa questioned while taking a quick look at the vehicles. "Yet. Unfortunately, one of my close friends is ill. Therefore, Neil and I are going to pay her a visit," Ella replied. "Oh." Alpha Neil patted her head and smiled. "We will be back tomorrow. Take care of everything." "Yes." Elisa responded with a smile and nodded her head politely at him. Elisa watched as they walked to the car and then drove away from the pack house area. Following closely behind them were cars crammed with pack fighters. She understood that Logan had set them there for his parents' safety. He was very concerned about them. Elisa turned around when every car left the area. She walked to the pack house. She observed that there were only maids working there. She made the assumption that the guests were in their rooms. The maids slightly bowed to her, and she nodded at them. "Where is your Alpha?" She asked one of them about Logan. "We have no idea. It was in the morning when he and Beta Wade left, and they had not yet returned." "Okay." Elisa went upstairs and entered Logan's bedroom. She closed the door and walked to the closet. She reached into her closet. She looked for a dress and pulled out a long dress that was a dark maroon color. After taking a shower and getting dressed, she exited the bedroom. She headed in the direction where the head Alpha's office was. In the middle of the way, she called Logan. But he did not receive the call. When she entered the office, the first thing she did was grab a few files, and then she went and sat down on the couch. She was skilled in administrative work. So when she noticed some problems, she again called Logan. This time, he received the call. "Elisa. Where are you? I came outside for a meeting. I did not want to do that in the pack house since Lucas and his officials were there." "Oh. You have never called me like this. Do you have something important to say?" "Yeah, there is a problem in management in the third folder of the Crescent Moon pack. When I get back, I'll check on that for you." "Okay." Elisa cut the call without saying anything further. She spent the whole day in the office. Due to the fact that she was spending so much time there, maids came to serve her food a few times. It was important to them that they watch out for her. Elisa highlighted another line by encircling it in a circle with a red marker pen. She began to feel tired. So she put the files aside on the table and leaned back against the couch for 2 minutes. She had a headache. She massaged her head and sat up. "I feel like I have been putting way too much strain on my eyes today." After putting those files in the drawer on the desk table, she left the office. She closed the door behind her and went downstairs. She made her way to the kitchen, where she heard the maids. I can't believe I am going to be the one to serve him tea. No, I will go. Shut up and pay attention to what you were doing, I will go to his room. It's my order. It was the chief maid who spoke out. Elisa paused and looked at the maids. They turned their heads and were stunned by looking at Elisa. What are you talking about? She asked. Young mistress, we were just talking about Alpha Lucas. The chief maid replied. She paused, cleared her throat, and began to speak again. He asked for a cup of black tea. Elisa observed their faces and said coldly, go and inform Madame Elora about it. She is not at the pack house. Not here. Yet, she and Madame Tissa went somewhere a few hours ago. It looks like everyone has some work today. Elisa muttered to herself. Madame Tissa asked about you. What did she ask? She asked if you were here. What did you reply? I told her that you were in the office. She said okay. Elisa frowned. I thought everything was okay between us now. Why didn't she come to talk to me? She thought, then felt, perhaps she has important work outside. She noticed one of the maids pull the tray from another, which contained the kettle and a glass with sugar cubes. It almost spilled the tea from the kettle. Where are you going? She asked the maid. To Alpha Lucas's room. The one who was holding the tray replied. Give it to me. Elisa said as she held out her hand. The maids were shocked by what they heard. However, the maid didn't hesitate to hand the tray over to her. I will give it to him. I was going back to the office room anyway. She said and left the kitchen. It was already evening. She could not realize the time. Her parents would never call her since they believed she was safe in the pack house. She went upstairs and stopped in front of the intersection of the two corners. She turned to the left and took a deep breath before starting to walk there. She halted in front of the last door. She lifted her hand but hesitated to knock on the door. She recalled that when she woke up yesterday morning, her wounds were already healed. So she wanted to ask him if he desired to give her pain, then what was the reason behind healing her? She knocked on the door and waited outside. Come in. She entered the room but was stunned. He was only wearing a pair of black jeans. Elisa guessed that he was searching for his shirt in the closet as he looked for something. The black moon tattoo on his upper back was visible to her eyes. That was the moment something hit her. Black Moon? The Alpha who rules the Black Moon pack. She mumbled to herself as she tried to match the two things. Her eyes widened. When she first saw the tattoo 2 years ago, she was unable to process the information in her head. However, everything was starting to make sense to her now. He turned her head as if he had heard her mumbling and looked directly into her eyes with his predatory eyes. She gulped and looked away immediately. Why are you shirtless? He frowned and said, keep pretending innocent as if you have never seen it before. By the way, what are you doing in my bedroom? His tone was frigid. She looked here and there to avoid his gaze. I came here to give it to you. She quickly made her way to the coffee table in order to set the tray there. However, there were already a great number of files scattered all over, taking up all of the available space. She could feel his gaze on her. She ignored it and was about to bend down to set the file together so that she could place the tray there. But before that, she felt a hand jerking her arm backward. Ah! The unexpected pull startled her, and she let out a scream. However, she could not balance the tray. She noticed the tea had spilled out of the kettle and fell on a fair and hard chest. Her eyes grew wider. She immediately put the tray on the couch before turning her attention to Lucas. Your chest. Her voice was shaking as she could see the red and swollen skin like a line instantly printed on the right side of his chest. But Lucas did not let out a single word. As if he could not feel anything or as if this pain was nothing in front of him. "Lucas, where is the first aid box? You need to put something on that spot to alleviate the pain," she said while looking around to locate the first aid box in the room. She wanted to go to the bathroom to check for it. But he did not let go of her arm. In fact, he tightened his grip and pulled her closer to himself. His eyes were sharp, and his gaze was so intense, which made Elisa frightened. "Why did you send your best friend to talk to me about you, hey? Do you think she is your lawyer? I am warning you. Don't try to manipulate others. Because it won't work on me." Elisa frowned at Lucas when she heard him. She sent Tissa to him? When? Elisa came to the realization that her best friend had made an attempt to solve the conflict that existed between them, which was now hopeless. She could not help but feel miserable. "Why did you tell those things to him, Tissa? You gave me your word that you would not tell anyone else. For the past 2 years, I have kept all of this to myself as a secret," she thought and sighed. "When you see you don't have any chance now, you managed to get her to talk to me." Lucas said it with a cold tone. "Stop accusing me of every single thing. I didn't send her to you." "Really? Then why did she come to me?" "I don't know." Lucas scoffed at her and released her arm. "Get out." Elisa gave him an angry look and said, "Listen, I didn't tell anyone to come to you and talk about me. And I will leave this room, but I want the answers to my questions. Why did you heal me the night we went to the club? You were the one who hurt me. If you wanted to hurt me, then why did you remove my pain? How did you manage to get into my home?" Elisa barraged him with a plethora of questions all at once. She paid close attention to the expressions on his face. But he was indifferent. "Done? Now get out." "I didn't get my answer yet. I won't leave this room before getting your reply. Your answers," he then remarked before turning his back. He headed to the closet, where he was looking for something. Elisa observed him pulling a black shirt out of the closet. He was about to put it on when she rushed to him and stopped him by grabbing the shirt. "What are you doing?" he asked. "You are injured. How can you wear it without applying something to it? Your skin is already swollen. If you don't use any tonic, you are going to end up with blisters." He let go of the shirt and it remained in her hand. She got the chance and went to the bathroom. She found the first aid box and returned. She saw him sitting on the couch while holding a file. When he felt her approaching, he looked at her. "Did I tell you that I want to treat it?" he asked. She stared at his chest in the wounded area. The red line in his chest bulged up and turned a darker red shade. She knew he was a stubborn man, and she was aware that she could not see this man be in pain. Therefore, she mustered up some courage and sat down next to him. She knew that he could insult her once again, but she decided to ignore it this time. He threw his file on the table, and she flinched. He glared at her when he saw her opening the box and taking out an ointment. She closed her eyes and mumbled to herself, "Just for this time." She opened them and peered into his piercing eyes. "What do you think you are doing? Treating your wound?" she replied and placed the box over a file on the table. She grabbed his shoulders with both of her hands and turned them toward her. "Now don't move and let me do it." She thought he would oppose her again. But it surprised her when he kept quiet and let her do what she wanted to do. She took a cotton ball and a tonic for the burn since the whole first aid box was full of tonics set up by Dr. Linus. She applied a small amount of the ointment while hissing. She felt like she was the one who had been hurt, rather than him. She blew a little while rubbing the tonic lightly. "You forgot that I am an alpha." He spoke out. "Yeah, but no wound can be removed magically. It will take some time to recover, but until then, you will have to endure the pain. Not everyone is a weak alpha like your Logan." He mocked her. She ignored his remarks and kept treating her wound. She was a trained Luna. She learned many things in different sectors. She gained a lot of knowledge. Not only in the techniques of combat but also in aspects of medicine. Because who knows when Alpha would get attacked by someone and in urgency she would have to treat his wound. "You look like an expert. Perhaps you do this to him regularly," he muttered under his breath. His breath touched her forehead. She realized how close they were. She raised her head and looked at him. "He never gets wounded," she replied while looking into his eyes. "How could he? He never goes to war like me. Do you know how many wounds I have to heal by myself?" "How many?" Her tone came out as a whisper. "You can't even count. It's not a movie where you go to war and come out without wounds, like a hero. In reality, every single wolf's target is the head alpha. They will jump on you together. But it will be your skills that determine whether or not you survive." As she attempted to grasp the meaning of his words, she blinked her eyes. Her thoughts flashed back to the battles that she had seen portrayed on film. She had no combat experience whatsoever. Since the pack had not been attacked by anyone, she was unaware of the situation. However, after going through the training, she knew the war was not a walk in the park. It was something disastrous. The passage of time allowed people to move on with their lives, but those who had suffered the loss of members of their family could only live with regret. She felt his face getting closer, and at a distance of 1 inch, he paused and said, "I could heal every wound in my body. But there is one wound that I haven't healed yet. It is raw, and someone rubs salt daily over it. Do you know what wound I am talking about?" "What?" "The wound you gave me 2 years ago." Hearing him, her eyes widened as if she were lost in his eyes but had regained consciousness just now. She immediately stood up from the couch and looked everywhere except at him. "The things Tissa told you, that's nothing. No one forced me or anything. Don't take it seriously and leave it," she said as she tried to remove the animosity toward her father from his head to keep him safe. He was silent after hearing her. So she was about to walk towards the door to leave the room. But before that, he rose up and grabbed her hand. He turned her to him, and her body pressed against his. "Do you think I'm a fool? Didn't I ask you who was blackmailing you that night? I knew that man would create problems one day. My friends even told me to forcefully take you away from this pack. But do you know what I felt that night? I realized how weak you are. You could not stand with a man who your parents didn't like. You could not stand with a man who loved you more than his parents. You failed to stand with a man who was not powerful like the head alpha. I felt that night that you didn't deserve to be my Luna." When Elisa heard that he had always been aware of the truth, her eyes started to well up with tears. All this time, she thought he did not know the truth, so he raised hostility in his heart for her. She pushed him hard, which created a distance between their bodies, but his hand did not leave hers. "It's your fault too. Why didn't you tell me who you are? Why did you keep it a secret? If you told me that you were an alpha of another pack, maybe things would not have happened like this. Maybe no one opposed our relationship. Maybe your relationship with your parents would have also been good. Maybe we..." She paused and bit her bottom lip to control herself. She could not say what she was feeling. She was angry at him, at the same time she was sad. Wow, Elisa. Just wow. Always want to stay with convenience? Haven't you heard of it? Prosperity brings friends, adversity tries them. Lucas said and reaffirmed his hold on her to bring her closer to him. She could not feel anything as her mind was lost. Her wolf was also whining for him. So if I were not the head alpha of a pack, I didn't have any right to get you? And why would it have made a difference about who I was? Didn't you say you loved me the way I was? Or you changed your mind that night in greed to become a Luna? Hey! She shook her head and lowered it. I always wanted to ask forgiveness. Forgive? He asked with shock and pushed her. Because of the push, she came dangerously close to falling to the ground, but she managed to keep her balance by holding the couch. She stood straight and turned her head at him. She saw him running his fingers through his hair in anger. 2 years. He muttered and fell silent for some time as if recalling those days. Then he started, for 2 years, I have been waiting for you. Each and every day, I thought you would call off the wedding. I thought you would look for me or wait for me to return after cancelling it. But what did I get in return? The woman I gave the right in me the most never dared to stand up on her own feet. He turned to her with a pair of furious eyes. She could not be more shocked. She did know that he had been waiting for her to cancel the wedding. Do you want to know what more I got which rubbed my wound like salt? He clenched his jaw and asked. She could see contempt in his eyes. But she could not take her eyes off him. That woman was becoming strong for another man. She was getting trained and learning life lessons to serve another man. She was preparing herself with every intensity to become another alpha's Luna. She was stunned by his every word. He had every news of her, how she had spent her life in the last 2 years. She avoided his gaze and said, I could not choose you over my parents. I am so sorry. After stating that, she quickly started walking towards the door. She was well aware that if she continued to stay here longer, she would lose herself in front of him once again. She grabbed the doorknob and realized that the door was locked. She recalled that she did not close the door but let it slightly open before entering the room. But when she came out of the bathroom with the first aid box, the door was closed. Did he lock the door? She was about to move the lock when she felt a hand turn her around. Her back pressed against the door. I think I should leave. She sobbed while evading his eyes. She had been preparing herself to stand in front of him one day, but she broke down. If he were to say that he detested her for the past 2 years, she would play along and let him live his life happily. But he said he had been waiting for her. She had no idea how she would be able to confront the man who had once loved her so deeply. Even though he was the most powerful alpha leader and could have any woman he wanted, he still waited for her. It pierced her heart. She felt depressed by his words. She was cursing herself for not cancelling the wedding and kept listening to her father. She messed up everything. Now there was no possible way to get back to the old life again. She desired to die, just like she felt the night she broke their relationship with him. It was more painful than that night. She was already living her life with guilt, but how was she supposed to live from now on? Please let me go now. I can't talk to you right now. She said and looked at him slowly. Her eyes were red from crying, she was continuously sobbing. Her lips were trembling when she spoke. Even if she wanted, she could not get a backbone for herself against this man. Because she was the main traitor in this situation. In front of her stood a devoted lover who had waited for her for so long. She felt that she was the one who needed to get out of everyone's lives and move far away from them. She did not want to be faced by the venom that shone from this man's eyes. Her eyes were filled with tears as she begged him to let her go and give her the opportunity to hide the agony and guilt she felt. "Let me go." She sobbed in silence as she uttered the words. He lowered his head to come to her level and replied, "You came here by your choice, but you can't leave until I want it." Elisa stared at Lucas. She tried to see through his eyes to determine whether or not he still had feelings for her somewhere in his heart. Not at all. His piercing gaze was filled with vengeance. They were mocking her. She rested her head against the door and closed her eyes. Tears streamed out of her eyes repeatedly. He was also silent. He did not move, nor did he talk to her. "What do you want now, Lucas?" she asked without opening her eyes. "A weak omega like you can't give me anything," he said and released her hands. She opened her eyes and looked at him. "If I say I am regretting everything I have done, will you be able to forgive me?" She sniffed and wiped her eyes. "Never," he replied and turned around. He went to the couch and sat down. Her eyes followed his every move. He lit up a cigarette and started smoking. When his eyes met hers, she lowered her head and kept quiet. She wanted to share her feelings toward her, but Elora's face came to her mind, which stopped her heart totally. She was his future Luna, how could she break their relationship like that? She remembered how Elora was crazy for Lucas. She loved him. She was a powerful lady. Indeed, she was the perfect Luna for him. "I am nothing but a useless woman who could not protect my love for him. He is right. I don't deserve him," Elisa thought. Revenge is something to which no one sees any relation. No matter if it is about your parents, your family, or the person you loved once. Lucas broke the silence after exhaling the smoke from his mouth. "If you want, you can kill me. Like this, everyone will be happy," she mumbled while looking down. She could hear his chuckle. "I have planned something big for you, baby. Killing you is nothing in front of that." Elisa experienced a trembling sensation across her entire body. Concerned about the future he had in store for her, she experienced feelings of dread. The terror of the unknown began to consume her. She did not want him to give her pain, rather than this, she wanted to die. "But before we get to that, I have plans for two different people," he said and smirked. Elisa slowly lifted her head and looked at him. She could see his maniac grin. She could not help but ask, "Who?" "Your Logan and his lovely father-in-law." As soon as she heard him, her eyes widened. "Please, don't do anything to them. Let them go." "Let them go?" "Yeah, you are right. They did nothing. They are saints," he said and scoffed. She observed his movements. Everything about him, from the way he smoked his cigarette to the way he flicked the ash off of it and the way he let the smoke escape from his mouth, fascinated her. She felt that he had never known this man. In the past, he had a tender heart and would joke around when he was around her. However, the consequences of her actions completely severed his feelings for her. She took a few slow, deep breaths in an effort to settle herself down. She balled her hands into fists and started walking toward him. He kept smoking while looking at her. She stopped in front of him and stated, "I know what they did was wrong. But you have moved on in your life. You have a giant pack to rule. You have a Luna who is very perfect for you. I am requesting it. Please let others live a normal life. Don't create any problems. Everyone around us is happy. So? I am not happy to see them happy. For me, my happiness is more important than theirs. I am not like you, who is the greatest person in the world and can do anything to make others happy. She gulped as he spoke so sharply. She could see his furious face. His heart was filled with venom for Logan and her father. How can I be so careless with the man who has been after my belongings ever since I was a child? Her brows narrowed as she tried to explain it to him. He is not after your things. What yours was also his from the beginning. He is your brother. Why do you still keep in mind that he is not your real brother but your cousin? Just accept him as your own brother. When your parents adopted him, they accepted him as their own son. Can't you see how he is working daily just to prove to his parents that they did not make any wrong decisions to show him love? As she defended Logan, he shot her a glaring look in her direction. He did not like it. Looks like he is an actual hero in your eyes. She shook her head and looked away from him. It seems that I am the actual villain here in all of your lives. If I had never entered either of your lives, perhaps the two of you would have a healthy relationship. He got on his feet, and she stepped back. He moved one step closer to her, at which point she retreated one more step. Keep talking about that man. I will make things more difficult for him. I will cause him the kind of suffering that he has never even imagined in his wildest dreams. She gazed at him sadly. She had no way to convince the man in front of her. She did not want any clashes in this family. And about Elora? He paused and smirked. She is my loyal woman, and even if she dies, she will make sure to ask for my permission first. She is 1000% better than you. I have never made a decision that turned out to be wrong, with the exception of the one that is in front of me right now. She quickly shifted her side away from him and then turned around. When he referred to Elora as his woman, it made her feel uncomfortable. Even though he insulted her by comparing her to Elora, the fact that he called her his woman was the thing that hurt her heart the most. Do whatever you want. I can only try to convince you not to hurt them. I don't have anything else in my hand anyway. She muttered and wanted to leave the room since she thought there was nothing to talk about. She did not want to break down again and again. However, when he walked up behind her and got close, she felt her heart stop beating. He leaned down close to her ear and said, "What about you? Will you not inquire as to what kind of punishment I have in store for you?" She shut her eyes as her lips trembled. Tears rolled down from her close eyes. This time, she did not think of anyone. She would break down in front of him anyway. How long would she restrain herself from getting closer to him? So she ignored all the ties that were keeping them apart. She turned around and hugged him, leaving him stunned. Her teary face pressed against his bare torso as she embraced him tightly. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.